Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 17th, 2021 at approximately 11:47 a.m. PST. Well, it does seem that things are getting a little complicated out there. I was just watching a couple of posts I've been seeing, and apparently there is a real problem with food shortages at this point. Now, before I get into that, a couple of very important things. Myself, because I'm somewhat reclusive anyway, I have a personal tendency and always have had of aiming at preferably a month, preferably 6 months backlog, storage of canned goods and what have you. Right, things got a little tight. I think I've got about a month and a half, 2 months. Just something to, so from my standpoint, I don't leave the house much anyway. But from my standpoint, it boils down to this. In spite of the storage going on, the reality is, due to the flooding, due to all sorts of other complications, shipping problems, food is a bit of a problem. Now remember, it's something very important to keep in mind. Canned goods will store for a long time. Okay, if you've got power, which seems to be a big problem for some people, and for those people, I really do feel for you. Which is why I recommend things like your dried foods, that sort of thing, as far as stockpiling. Not necessarily to eat every day, but just to make sure you've got something handy. Okay, where it comes to the fresh foods and your milk, that sort of thing. Very important that we remember that you can only go through so much. Okay, if you're buying 3 and 4 4-liter jugs of milk, for instance. I have no idea if people are doing that right now. Like I said, I tend to be somewhat reclusive. But if you're buying more than what you can reasonably eat, that it's going to spoil anyway, you really are better off, society is better off leaving some of it there. Okay, much more importantly, well, I don't know if it's more importantly, but also something to keep in mind. Everybody right now is under a staggering amount of stress. Now, the people that have, to the people that have lost everything in whatever natural disaster, my heart goes out to you. I do hope that things work out for you. But it's going to require the people around you, the people in your area, that you guys are going to have to work together. And this is the thing. I've talked before about the idea of reducing crime by helping and by getting to know your neighbors. It's your neighbors now that are in trouble, not due to crime, but due to complications. This is the time that we really have to realize that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, now there is limits to what people can do. I realize this. Okay, and that's why it's very necessary that you really take a look at the way you're behaving and ask yourself one thing. And even if you're having trouble even if you're struggling with food right now, keep in mind, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Okay, now I've noticed a couple of people mentioning that they've got, they've run into problems, and they really have. This is not the time to start going, oh, you're just being greedy. I mean, don't get me wrong, that happens, and there's a lot of people out there that are. Many of those seem to be reacting out of fear. Okay, fear, panic, and I mean, there's a lot of different words for it. I know for an absolute certainty, and this is one of the reasons why, way before all of this happened, I have a tendency of stockpiling to start with. Okay, I've got a child myself, and I would just as soon he eat. Okay, I'd like to see him eat some things a little more than he does others, but hey, what the heck. Something else to keep in mind, and it's not a great solution. Okay, if you can't get a hold of viable, of what you consider proper food, proper fresh food, things like cereal bars and what have you can absolutely work like an absolute charm to help. Okay, Sometimes when food gets short, we have to remember that it really is a case of not necessarily getting exactly what you desire to eat, so much as what works. Okay, what I found works really nicely, and this is why I stockpile some of it. I don't, for instance, for myself, I don't eat baked beans on a regular basis. I like them, but I don't eat them on a regular basis. That said, I end up with them in stock, so that if I do run into problems, I've got a way to deal with it. Because let's face it, it's absolutely imperative that we realize that everybody's going through a real struggle. And I like what I saw one person posted. They mentioned that where it comes to the last couple of years, it would have been nice to see people pulling together a little. The problem is, that would have been fantastic. But from my experience, what I've seen happen is whenever there is a natural disaster or there is some sort of common enemy, people still react primally first. Okay, they seem to go into this idea of one for one for one and all for me sort of thing. Okay, which is certainly not the most effective way to do it. But as we've seen, the people that are stuck right smack in the middle of the floods, okay, the people that are caught right in the middle of it are the ones that seem to pull together the most, which bears witness to the concept that I have that when there is a natural disaster, people do pull together. But we have to take a look at the satellite, the people that are on the edges of those areas. Okay, I noticed somebody opened the door. Okay, somebody just around here somewhere locally opened the door and said, "Look, I've got extra room. Come and stay." Okay, and that is something that I've seen happen before. But we have to realize that working together, we can get through this. We can make this a better world. Back in 2003, we had a staggering amount of troubles with forest fires. And we seem to have them on a regular basis at this point. Like I'm up here sitting in Rutland up in Kelowna. Okay, the fact that I don't leave the house much is why I avoid a lot of the stress. But I do hear things, and it does seem that we're getting, that the people that are caught right smack in the middle of the problem do tend to pull together a lot more than the ones on the satellite side of it. Okay, and I do encourage you to reach out and help the people around you. Okay, sometimes all it takes, I'd love to say a smile does wonders, and it does. But I will tell you, a smile is great until you realize you're starving to death. Okay, I'm fortunate. Okay, I've lived on the edge of poverty my entire life. One step beyond being put on the street. Fortunately, I've managed to avoid that little problem. And it's something I intend wholeheartedly on continuing to avoid. But when we're talking about what's going on, remember, something else I've seen happen in the grocery stores when there's shortages of food is people get mad at the workers there. And we have to realize that there's two things here going on. One, the workers are just trying to do the best they can with what they've got. They're likely going through the same problem you are. Okay. As in, many of the workers are what I've come to understand as the working poor. And it's really imperative that we realize that the people working may have no control over the situation, that, there's nothing on the shelves. They've run out of whatever. Okay. This is something very, very important. Now, I will tell you this, and I only just started doing this myself. Okay. It's hard to get to the grocery stores here. But where it comes to the canned food and that sort of thing, your canned food, your dried foods, I personally work with Amazon now. Okay, which means I can get it delivered here, and even if there's a shortage locally, Amazon ships from a long way away. And again, it may not be the best option for you. Okay, and many people that are running low on food and what have you, they can't wait 3 or 4 days. If you already know you're running low, start looking now. Don't wait until you run out. Okay. And especially if you're somebody like me that doesn't like leaving the house in the first place, you still have to deal with the reality that food is necessary. It's absolutely one of these things that we kind of got to work with. You know, I mean, it's a real complicated situation when we look at society and we realize that people are turning on each other and causing problems. Okay, now getting stressed out and fighting over milk and eggs, there's a problem here. But I also hear of people going in and robbing places instead of doing anything, instead of even trying to figure out something to go around. Okay, so I mean, we do have some complications happening, but it is something that we can work with. Okay, and yeah, I'm sitting here going, I've managed to get myself set up. Well, that's because I thought ahead. Now, right now, you're right smack in the middle of it. Okay, so I do encourage you all to really reach out to your neighbors if they're having trouble, even if all you've got is a spare can of beans. Even if that's all you've got for the neighbor next to you. Now, the nice thing about canned baked beans, you may not like the idea, but I'll tell you, if you're hungry, even cold, those are really, really useful. Now, and since I'm on the topic of ways of preparing ahead of time, in spite of the fact you're in the middle of it, this is kind of like closing the barn door after the horse left. Okay. I can't show you one right now, but I do encourage you because, like, I've always had trouble with electronics to start with. So I look at the mechanical ones. And I found a couple of can openers that are absolutely fabulous because they require no electricity, no gears, but they still open cans. They're a little more work than if you've got electricity, but I'll tell you, if you don't have electricity, these things work like a charm. I found them on Amazon. Okay, I found the first ones that I was looking for years ago in Army surplus. Okay, and the reason I do that is because, again, if you have a power failure, you can have all the canned goods in the world. If you don't have a can opener, you can't get at it. Okay, although here's an old trick from way back. If you've got a can, right, and you don't have a can opener, but you've got a flathead screwdriver and a hammer, you can still get into the can. Very clumsy way of doing it, but you take what you can get. Okay, now I do encourage you to reach out to each other. This is the time when we really have to look at what's going on and how to support each other, how to pull the community back into balance. Remember what I was saying about family being necessary. Family is not always bloodline. Your neighbor may be the only family you've got access to, the only person you talk to. Okay, but this again is a reason to get to know your neighbors. So that when you do run into a problem, you've got somebody, even if it's only somebody to talk through what you're going through. Sometimes that's all that's required. Okay, now, as I've mentioned multiple times before, at the bottom of this video, you'll see a whole list of ways of contacting me. If you've got questions in any field, absolutely drop me a line. Okay, I don't care what the field is. If I have the answer, I'll give you an answer. If I don't, I'll point you to where I figure you can get the answer. The one thing I won't do is I won't lie to you to make you feel better. Unless you ask me to. Okay, so this is very, very important at this point. Because, we're just coming out of this whole mess with COVID. And here we get hit with flood after fire, after whatever else is going on. Okay. It seems to be one struggle after the other, and I will tell you, from my experience, what's causing a lot of these cross currents is the way people are behaving towards each other. Now, you don't have to believe this, okay? I'm not expecting you to take my word for it. All I'm saying is make absolutely certain that you're treating people the way you desire to be treated yourself. It's that cross current that is causing a lot, that is aggravating the existing problems. Okay. And it's very important that we start really sitting down with each other. And even if, people keep talking about this social distancing thing, half my conversations happen when I'm walking out to I live in an apartment block. And half my conversations with my neighbors happen when I'm walking out to the garbage can, and they'll be up on their balcony, and I'll be talking, I'll be down on the ground. This is still communicating. This is still getting to know the people around you. Okay, it's still one of those things that's very, very important. Now, with all that going on, and understanding that the stresses are very real, you still have to stay focused on the other side of this. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Okay, these are the only 3 laws that I bother paying attention to, but here's the thing. Before you jump on that, if you take a look at the written laws, the spiritual laws, as in the commandments in any church or temple or Wiccan, witches' coven, the Church of Satan, they all have laws. They all have guidelines. Even things like NA and AA have, they have their guidelines, and they all have these laws and rules that you follow. But take every one of them and compare them to those 3. Okay, and you'll find that they encompass all of them. If you find a law that does not fit inside those 3, be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. If you find a law or a guideline that doesn't fit in those 3, absolutely drop me a line. I've been watching for them. I have not found one. Okay, and this is while going through Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikh. I don't know all the religions, obviously. The Wiccans, the Church of Satan, the many of the pagan religions all follow the same idea. I've looked at all these. I've looked at the guidelines from AA and NA, and every law I've come across falls into those 3. Okay, now, to that end, on the line of being true to yourself, I think it was yesterday I mentioned I was going to clear this shelf off up here. Okay, and the one end of it is done. The other stuff is storage that what you can't see, like where you see that where you see the figure up on the shelf, that is the edge of the rest of the stuff. Now, I've got a couple of things up there that I don't have to look at right now because they're out of sight, they're not on my camera. And like I said, I set the camera up in such a way that everything I can see behind me I can sort out. Okay, so that one little figure is all, that's, as you can see, the rest is gone. Most of it's been packed up and sent where it needs to. Okay, or at least boxed and ready to go. Because I decided I was getting rid of the junk. I was getting rid of the surplus that I don't require. Just wondering what that shelf and what that was up there. But anyway, that has worked really well. Now, I'm very happy to say that, now, where the heck is it here? Go way down here, and there we are. I am quite happy to say right now, I am at the point of doing final edits starting at page 359. And I've got everything set for that all the way to 371. As soon as I get done here, I will be carrying on. That's on the end of an epoch. So it is coming down to the end. If I do it at the rate it's going, like I said, I desired to have this done by Christmas, ready to go to print by Christmas. Because I've already set things in motion that it can go to print in January. I desire a little bit of lead time on it. Okay, so I've got one chat. I've got a chapter. Well, yeah, we'll try English. By the way, this is a live recording, which means all I do at the end of this is go back, double check, and make sure I got the date right, and I post it as is with all the hiccups, the whole 9 yards. The reality is, I'm not perfect by any functional stretch, but I've got one chapter that I'm going to have to add to cover things properly. And fortunately, to stay inside the parameters I've left for myself, that chapter I've got 10 pages to work with, which is great. Gives me lots of room and lots of leeway. Okay. The neat part about it is with that leeway, I can tie the book off properly. And this is just, like I said, the story itself, yes, I desire it to go properly. Okay, I have been addressed already about the potentiality of turning the Yldrbac Chronicles into a movie. Now, will I look at that in time? Absolutely. But with that in mind, I'm also keeping an eye on the different way I'm on the storyline to make sure that everything is available for it. Okay. They tell you some people seem to think creativity is 10% inspiration and is 10% perspiration, 90% inspiration. I'll tell you, that's about as far off as you can get. But by the way, that also applies to this idea of making this world a better place. It's not just good enough to just think about it and think wonderful, fuzzy, warm thoughts. If you're not doing anything, all the thinking isn't going to help. Okay. It's a great idea to close your eyes and picture the world being a better place. But the sad reality is, if you're not making the effort, like you saw how long that shelf stayed there, and I kept looking at it going, gee, it'd be nice if it was gone. It doesn't happen until you get up and make it happen. So the saying that goes along with that is be the change. When you see something that's off kilter, if you see people arguing in the store over bits and pieces, okay, if you have a way of encouraging them to find a solution instead of the fight, okay, and I know that's complicated. Many people will you'll just close your ears and go, it's not my problem, I can't deal with it. Well, the I can't deal with it, I have no doubt about. The it's not your problem, that's a bit of an issue. Because in case you hadn't noticed, it takes every member in society to help make a society work. Now, the tools I offer, the philosophies I live by, are the same ones that's the only ones I'm talking about that I'm suggesting you put to use. They're ones that I personally work with. Okay. And this is why I know for me they've worked really well. But we have to realize that if you're looking at food, okay, now this is a wake up call for some people that are running into shortages, especially some of the kids. Okay. Sometimes we have to eat things that we're not really happy about. But if it comes to a choice between going hungry and eating something you're not really content with for 3 or 4 days in a row, okay, or eating something you really like for one day and then starving for three, I'll tell you, you'll find it much easier. You'll find it much easier to cope with eating the same thing 3 or 4 days in a row than you will doing it the other way around. It just works out that way. And don't take my word for it, but I will tell you, you're better off taking my word for it than you are experiencing it. It's kind of like when I was told I was told years ago that a neat little combination of ketchup and ice cream was really, really good. I'll tell you, I've been told don't knock it until you've tried it. Well, I hadn't tried it, and I figured, okay, they seem to think it's a really good idea. So I tried it. You don't have to take my word for it, but don't blame me if you find it really disappointing when you pour ketchup on ice cream. In my opinion, it's a really bad combination. Okay, but given an option between eating something you're not really happy with for a few days or eating something you're really happy with for one day and starving for 2 or 3, I'll tell you, you'll be a whole lot happier at the end of the 2 or 3 days, having eaten something you weren't overly interested in. That is the sad reality behind it all. Okay. And this is why I say it's really imperative at this point, especially. Because here we are. I mean, I really feel for the people that ended up sleeping on the outside. Okay. I mean, we are hitting freezing levels. At least here we are. And down on the coast, in all fairness, it's colder on the coast than it is in the inland. Now I'm up in Kelowna, which is way into the middle of into the interior. Okay. But I grew up in Comox. So if you're on the coast, you don't have to be there, but if you're living on the coast and you're forced to sleep outdoors, I'll tell you the humidity there makes that outdoor sleeping even colder. And that's just the reality of it. Okay. With that in mind, okay, even if all you've got, let's say you don't have food, but you've got extra blankets you're not using. Okay, this is the time to really take a look at helping people out by distributing those. Okay, I've gotten rid of a lot of the stuff over the last little while, and I always make sure it goes to people that I either know need it or into a company that can get it somewhere. Okay, to people that do require it. Even old glasses, there are places that glasses. It would be an idea to have glasses that are the right prescription for you. But the kids that don't have a prescription, having a wrong prescription and being able to see, even adults that don't have the exact prescription, being able to see a little is easier for them than not being able to see at all. Now, this is where, this is why I say get to know the people around you. Okay. This is literally the time that we have to start working together. Now, here we are at November 17th today. Okay. We are moving into the Christmas season. Now, here's the thing. This is the time, people talk about all sorts of things, and we're going through shortages and what have you, which we are. But this is the time when traditionally, across the globe, no matter what your belief structure, people seem to be trying to help each other a little more. So how about if we call on that spirit just a little bit extra right about now? Because these floods that are happening and what have you, we can look at the positive or the negative. The positive is they will come to an end. The negative side of it is they may get worse before they get better. And in any event, we have to pull together in order to hold society together. Because you'll notice food shortages don't care what kind of pocketbook you've got. The power outages don't check to see who you voted for before they pull the plug on your power. And I'm not talking about the company pulling the plug. I'm talking about the relay stations collapsing. Or a fire burning down the wires that get the power to your home. The fires don't check and see who you're voting for. They don't check and see what church you go to. Everybody is in exactly the same boat at this point. Okay, now I will be back again tomorrow. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.